What is up, guys? Nick back here again. I know it's been a while. What can I say? High school, it's stressful. I haven't been really caring to make another video. And, I don't know, I figured I'd step away from YouTube for a while, just think about stuff. But I'm back. I'm making another video right now because I just watched Terminator Dark Fate, and I went back and I watched all the Terminator movies. So, what else but to do but rank them? And, well, yeah, that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to try to make more videos now. I don't know if they're just going to be as current. I don't know if anyone really cares to watch, but yeah. But just before we get into the ranking and stuff, if there is anyone out there who does watch my videos and does like what I do, please subscribe. That would really be helpful. I want my videos just to be watchable and for people to be out there. And if there's anything I need to change, just let me know, obviously. And, I'll try to do my best with what I have. But, without further ado, let's get into it. And, after going back and watching all these, 1 and 2 are the best. The rest are kind of like just, I've heard this be said before by other people, are just kind of like big budget fan fiction that takes place in the universe. Me, personally, I don't think about that with all the films, but, yeah, with most of them. And Dark Fate was, well, we'll see. But, coming in at number 6 is that Genesis, man. What can I say about this film? This movie, I'll talk about the good. This movie has a lot of good things going for it. Obviously, this one brings back Arnold Schwarzenegger. The characters, you got Kyle Reese in it, John in it, you got Sarah Connor in it. In fact, it's the only film where I think you get all four of your main characters that you really like from this franchise. And, their premise is like the most fan fiction-y one, and it's kind of fun and just everything in it. Like the acting, the action, it's big, it's expensive, and you like it, but it's pointless. It's the most pointless one in my opinion, that's all about good I can say about it, but because, it's pointless. Like, they go back in time and they retcon everything. They go back and they retcon everything. Like, just the 1980 film doesn't matter, Terminator 2 doesn't matter, and I mean, oh my god, it's stupid. And I mean, John Connor as the villain, like, who he is and, like, what the T-100 model that he is, isn't bad. I like what they do with him. I like the actor that plays him. I think he does good as the character of John Connor, but I think he does good as the villain, but he doesn't do good as John Connor. He's not John Connor. And Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese, put me out of my misery, please. But there is some good casting. Obviously, the best part about this movie is what they do with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and just everything that they did with him I absolutely love. Like that scene where he's like, Kyle, protect my Sarah. It gets me every time. It's a good scene from Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Sarah Connor, played by Emilia Clarke, is really good. She's a fun character. She's into it. She's not the same Sarah Connor, obviously, but I think out of all the casting, they did good with her. And it just feels like this one didn't need to happen at all, and the trilogy that they were going to set up with it just feels pointless and stupid. I bet it would have been cool in the end to see what it was like, probably, just to experiment. But yeah, this film, quite honestly, just does not matter to me. Even with all of its funny and lively action, you don't even remember any of the action really in this one. It's not something that's memorable to you. It's kind of like just there. it's just that, give me a minute. It's just that their action, and that's just not really enjoyable for me in a Terminator movie. What else do I want to say about this film? It's hard to think because, yeah, Skynet. This is the only one where I think Skynet is the profound villain in this one. Like, he's literally given a personality and stuff. And I don't know. I've never seen Skynet as, like, this big threat. Like, I mean, I know he's the reason why people died and there's the war and stuff. But, like, I don't know. I've always seen Skynet as the antagonistic threat, but I've never seen it as like the full villain. The only reason why Skynet ever did what it did was because we feared it and we tried to shut it down, and then it went self-aware and fought against us. So I don't like what they did with that in the film. But all in all, I think it's still just a fun watch, especially when you're going through all the Terminator movies and you get to this one. It's like, yeah, it's fun, yeah. But yeah, number 6 for me. It's the least pointless and meaningless to all of them, and just, it kind of tarnishes the franchise in ways, and, you know, yeah. Plus, you know, they put actors and stuff in this film that don't even matter in the end. But anyways, number 5. My number 5 pick is probably, I've seen what people put as their number last pick, but as their number 6 or last one. But I find it enjoyable. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Just a disclaimer, this was the first Terminator film I ever watched, so it's what got me into the whole Terminator franchise in the first place. It's the main reason why I love everything about Terminator. The time travel, the stopping Judgment Day happening. It's like, and plus just the action and everything. It feels exciting and awesome. And I absolutely love this film. I think it's a really good successor, like after part 2, where like part 2, you know, Judgment Day doesn't happen, we stop that. This one, Judgment Day, they kind of contradict the second film, but I think it's worthy enough to get to progress the series along, to get to all the way back to like make the full circle around, which we never actually do in the franchise. But the best part about this movie is definitely the ending. You know, I like the TX. The ending where, you know, the bombs fall is really powerful stuff. You know, and just John accepting his destiny and what it means, and that he knows that this is his fate, but he knows that in the future that he will in fact stop it. So yeah. And, you know, that's another thing. Like, John, kind of a mix for me, because Nick Stahl has some scenes where he does very good, and he really shows this character some truths. And then there's some scenes where it's like, will you just shut up, because you're not doing this character right. You just don't feel like John. And that's one of the main problems for me in the movie, really, is that. Another thing is the humor. I really noticed the humor in this one. There are some scenes where it's like, okay, that's funny, I like that, that's good. And then there's some scenes where it's like, talk to the hand. And then they start playing that song, it's my funky man, funky. I don't think people ever really talk about that as a point. Like, yeah, they used this song in this scene, and there's a bunch of different tone stuff going on with this movie. And I think if they just would have took some time to really focus on what they wanted to tell with this movie and make it more like part 2, it would be a lot better and people would like it a lot more. Claire Danes as Catherine Brewster, I like her. I think she's good. She's a nice little woman, female action character in this. They don't really do much with her, but yet they don't make her the action person, but yet they don't make her the pressy girl that's going through this like, oh, you know, but they make her an emotional character, and I like her. She does help drive the story forward, and, you know, I would have liked to have seen the two connect more on a basis. Also, the Terminatrix. I like the Terminatrix. So many people do not like the Terminatrix. I don't get it, you know? Sure, it's the combination of the T-1000, the T-800, and I mean, yeah, but I like the stuff that she can do. She can control machines, and she can make weapons out of her own body and stuff. And I think it's cool that they went with this decision. I mean, I know it's kind of gimmicky, and some of the things that she can do with like the is like, yeah, it's stupid, and I get that it is kind of stupid and weird. And I don't know if like that's how phones from 2003 worked like that, but I mean, I enjoy this film. It's got a nice spectacle. It's got some good elements to it. I just don't see it as the hated film that everyone else sees it. And you know, definitely probably because it's the first one I saw. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie, I will say, is kind of a mixed bag, you know, because on the one hand, I look at him like, wow, you're just not the guy from T2, and that's just sad because it kind of feels like, you know, he's not bringing his A game. He's kind of just phoning this one in because they asked him back and he demanded a bunch of stuff, which is what did happen. But it also feels like he's playing a different character, and that's a good thing to me, is that he's playing a T-850. He's playing this Terminator that doesn't give a shit what you say or do. He's just here to do his mission, and he's going to get you to where you need to go. And he's not going to stop until until that mission is successful. And yeah, it pays off in the end. I mean, so yeah, I think this film, now some good things going forward. It's got some okay things, and then it's got some bad things going in. But then you get to the end, and it's like, yeah, they did it. Like, yeah, it's such a gut punch to the fact that they really just went with it. And I enjoy it for that. When I'm watching 1 and 2, I always put in 3, and I'm always like, yeah. I'm always like, yeah, this feels right almost. But not that good because it's still number 5. So, without further ado, number 4. And as you probably could have guessed, it only could be 2 more because, well, you know what my first 2 are going to be. Terminator Salvation is my number 4. And I'm going to say this. I don't see the hate in this film. I see if you could find it boring, annoying, and just not as action-packed as most of the other films. But I just don't see how you could absolutely hate this movie. It's not that bad of a movie. If anything, it's a good action blockbuster set in a post-apocalyptic world where John is rising up as this hero person. He's not there yet, but he's rising up. And the movie gets you to that place. And I think what people don't realize is that there was meant to be another trilogy after this one. Yeah, Genesis did a trilogy. Genesis was going to have a trilogy. Salvation was going to have a trilogy. Dark Fate is supposed to have a trilogy. But we'll see. But yeah, like, I think if they would have been allowed to make those 2 films, I think this film would have been looked at as very good as the first intro into this series. And I mean, there's a lot of good in this film, in my opinion. You got Marcus, who I think is just a good character. I like what they did with his Terminator. I like that he had this little arc, and he kind of achieves that going into it. And I mean, he's not a good person. He starts off as a bad person in prison, and then he shows up again in the future, and it's like, whoa, he's the same age. Like, is he a Terminator? And I've seen where like that was spoiled by a trailer, kind of like how Genesis got that spoiled, and then Terminator 2 also had stuff spoiled. I mean, I'm pretty sure each Terminator trailer has spoiled something that was of an importance. And John Connor as Christian Bale as John Connor is like, I don't think people realize that he's an Oscar-worthy actor. I mean, American Psycho, anybody? And he's playing John Connor in this film. I think that's just perfect to me. If you don't like the guy, that's fine. I understand why you don't like the guy. He's kind of a bit of a, you know, the method actor thing, you know, like, and plus, the stuff that he did on set is like, wow. You really went crazy with this guy, huh? But he brings it. He brings it his all in this. And the guy playing Kyle Reese in this, who sadly did pass away a couple of years back, I think about 3 years back, which is sad. But yeah, I think he does good. He's kind of this young version of Kyle Reese. You don't get to know him all that well, but you still see where like he has the hope in the future that things will go back to normal, and that he wants to be part of the resistance, and he wants to help save the world and bring it back to normal. You see that, and it's perfect. And you get a bunch of new Terminators, like the Moto Terminators and the water ones, and you get to see all of this, and it's awesome. I love it. I think where the film really kind of veers off into everything that I don't like is that it's not too futuristic enough. I really would have liked to have seen like the laser guns battle, which is what Genesis at the first beginning of the movie really had going for it. That they had all the machines, they had everything right, the lasers, and the premise of that film went with it. But that's what I like about this film over those films, is that I think it does its filming confidently, and it does it right, and it tries to make a good, decent film. But you had the writer's strike that cost the film a lot of problems between 2007 and 2008, and then they had to reshoot the movie to put John as a main focus. And yeah, the identity crisis in this film is just kind of like, oh, who's our main character? Who are we with? And it's like, it's obvious that Marcus was supposed to be the main character. But that's kind of the main problem with this movie, is that it feels like it could be the greatest film since Terminator 2, but it just doesn't achieve that goal just yet. But and the ending to me is like, it's another factory setting scene, and it's a T-800 once again. But I think unlike most, I think it's kind of enjoyable because you just get to see Marcus doing something, and I think the ending just is kind of choppy for me, and I think the first two halves are great. But then when we get close to that third half, unlike Terminator 3, where it's like, first two halves not so good, third half really good, third act really good. First two acts are really good. Third act, it's kind of sloppy and all over the place, and doesn't really make any sense. And you just see that in the film. Like, it shows. But I don't see how anyone could hate this film. I just think it's a good, fun action film that you should definitely give a chance at watching. So yeah, and it was my second film that I watched in the Terminator franchise. So yeah. But going on to my number 3, and this actually surprised me, my number 3 pick. But yeah, my number 3 pick for me is going to have to be Dark Fate. Now, I'm not going to spoil this movie or anything, but what I'm going to say is that it, to me, is probably the better continuation, because it still carries on the themes from part 2. It carries on its message about no fate in what we make, but, and then, the new Terminators, like, Linda Hamilton back as Sarah Connor, perfect, awesome, I love it. Mackenzie, blah blah blah, Mackenzie Davis, I didn't think I was going to like her character, but really it was just the haircut. I hate that haircut. I hated that haircut for Captain Marvel in the Avengers movie, in Endgame. But yeah, she was perfect. Danny was such a good character. I loved seeing this person who's just swept up into this mess, and she comes in fighting, and it's like, oh yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger, once again, they found a way just to make his character perfect. Like, he's a machine who lived with humans, who becomes human, and it's perfect, and I love it. And I mean, there's just so many emotional moments with stuff that happens, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think the main problem with this movie is that there's 2 twists that they try and give away, and it's just like, yeah, like, we kind of could have guessed that. You didn't need to really twist that as a twist. And then the film has nothing really going for it other than just being a rehash of the originals, I think. But it's good to see like a good return to form of the original series with its emotional stuff, its action stuff. Like the action in this one, I think, is the best and the most memorable since T1 and T2. Do I still think that T3 is probably the better continuation that I would have preferred? Yes. Just because with this film they have to set up so much new stuff and such a different thing, and like obviously it's been said that like Skynet is not the main villain here and is not going to ever be again. So yeah. But I mean, that's a good thing about it, is that it doesn't rewrite the first two movies in order to make this movie. This movie is affected by those movies. And it's a fun joyride. Like Gabriel Luna as the new Terminator is just perfect. Well, he's not perfect. I think he's still funny, and the way he tries to act human in this movie is just awesome. It's perfect how that Terminator is just able to blend in, and it's just shocking at times where it's like, whoa, like, oh god, I didn't realize that. Like, oh, he's like, oh, that one's the Terminator, and like, oh, that's him. Like, oh, he disguised himself. But I mean, I think with this movie, it's a good return to form, and I would like to see some sequels and see where they go. I can't think of what I wanted to say because there's something that I feel like I have to say about the film that I don't know. Overall, it was a good sequel, good return to form. It didn't quite nail it for me because it just, once again, I think the series is just tainted, and it's just the same old story that you usually get from this franchise. But I mean, yeah, that's it. I think yeah. I mean, I'm happy with where I place that. You might not be, but hey, make your own ranking. But my number 2 picks, and if you can't guess, the only 2 films that are actually worthy of actually being called Terminator films, in my opinion, which is a problem with Dark Fate. I don't think it's quite as good as, I mean, it's the best film that has come along since, but I don't think it's quite as good as still being called a Terminator movie. Wait. Yeah, that Terminator Dark Fate, it's a nice return to form. It changes a lot of things, but like it still feels like it needs to hold on to a lot of things that the Terminator franchise has done over the years, and that's really kind of just a letdown, because for me, I would have just loved for them to say, screw it, let's just make a film that takes place in the future, and like, let's just do something different and unique with it and just blow people out of the water. Like, that would have been better for me. But I could see where people like this film. Even just general audiences could even like this film, so yeah. But time for my number 2. And I'm going to go with The Terminator, the original. This film's good. This film's great. I think I'm going to talk about the bad because I don't have many to talk about it. And I think the bad is that it's just the low budget does not help this film. Like, there's definitely some effects that just don't hold up, and there's just some things that they really had to cut corners with and stuff, and it just, yeah, because James Cameron was a young filmmaker at the time, and no one took him seriously, so he really just had to cut corners, and he really had to deep down and make this film as he wanted to, which is a good thing, because, yeah. But, and there's just a lot of stuff with, like, the music and a lot of stuff that they do where they speed up the action and stuff, and it's like, okay. But, yeah, what can I say about this film that hasn't been said before? I mean, it's a slasher movie, it's an action movie, it's a sci-fi movie. This movie, time travel has taken over the series too much. It needs to stop. This film works best as like a horror action series for me, and this is what this film does. It combines these 3 films perfectly, almost seamlessly. You have the great villain of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is actually meant to play Kyle Reese in the film, and we know who originally they had planned to play the Terminator, O.J. Simpson, but he turned it down, saying no one would ever believe him as being a killer, and 10 years later we know where that went. But yeah, I love pointing that fact out there. But yeah, he plays it so perfectly. He works as the villain. Even when part 2 makes him the hero, you still think of him more as the villain than a hero. The action is just great, even for as small as the movie is. The little glimpses into the future is just great. Like, you look, like, his ability, James Cameron's ability to show, not tell, is great in this film, and his ability to tell, not show, is just great. Like, when we're doing chase scenes and action scenes, there's, like, a bunch of heavy dialogue and stuff that builds this world. And that he says, like, oh, sent back from the future to save you, blah, 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 blah. He spills this stuff out, but, like, you're engaged with it. It's entertaining. You love it. You're being brought into this whole new world in this franchise. And, you know, there's a lot of mystery and intrigue of, like, what's going on? Like, oh, man. But, yeah, it's a lot of fun. You love it. It's action-packed. Seeing the Terminator just be this menacing threat is, like, it's awesome. Kyle Reese, played by Michael Biehn, mwah, famous 80s actor. I could not imagine anyone else playing this role so perfectly. And, you know, he volunteered for this. You know, he's just the guy that's sent back in time who just wants to do the right thing to save the future because this is what he believes in. Plus, you know, he loves Sarah. Also, there's a good romance in this movie with Sarah and him. It really works. Their time is short, but it's perfect, and it sets up the sequel perfectly. It shows a lot of the themes that the second one would build into more. But Linda Hamilton as this character, she's more or less actiony, but that builds over time, and that goes into part 2 where she's kind of crazy, and, you know, yeah, but it builds over time and it goes into it, you know. But she builds over time as a person and this soldier, and, you know, yeah. And her scene where she's like, "You're Terminator, fucker." It works for me. It's perfect. This movie's perfect. Like, you have to watch it, okay? But my number 1 pick, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. What can I say, man? I mean, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger as the good guy after being the villain, and even though they spoiled that in the trailer, you got the great villain in the T-1000 who just plays the certain cop like, "Oh yes, I'm your police officer, and do you need any help today?" "Oh really? You're dead now." He's perfect. Robert Patrick, John Connor, played by I forget his name. Edward Furlong, not an actor at the time. Obviously not an actor, but he knows the character. Like, the directors and stuff, they obviously told him, "Hey, this is this character. This is how you're going to play it." And when he's set across with all these other actors, like Linda Hamilton, it's just, he works. He works in the film for me. He works for everybody. I think he does. There's a Linda Hamilton, she's crazy, she's kind of lost her humanity, and she goes through this arc in the film of, like, watching the Terminator play with John and seeing how he's becoming human with the thumbs up stuff, and there's a lot of show don't tell and tell don't show type stuff that just goes on, and I love it. The nuclear bomb blast is just awesome. The effects in this one still hold up to this day. It's still amazing to me what they were able to do. Just how they kind of changed cinema and how we view everything with, like, our faith and humanity and stuff, and what does it mean to be human is explored in this movie perfectly. James Cameron also, he's a great filmmaker when it comes to sequels, because he knows that when you do a sequel, you got to do it different. You got to do something that pleases the fan. You have to change everything, but yet make it similar enough to still keep fans wanting more and to still like it. And yeah, that's perfect to me. And I mean, you know, at the end, when we get that final goodbye and the thumbs up, it's like, yes, this is perfect. This is what we wanted, and this is what we love. And, you know, the action, like, there's stuff where, like, a helicopter goes over an overpass. You would not do that today. Like, oh my god. But they obviously really did it. And I mean, it's like, wow, you know. And I mean, there's just, the final scenes at the end of the factory is awesome. you go throughout this film, and even when it's slow pacing and just dialogue, you're interested by it because you love these characters. And it's awesome. You couldn't ask for anything more. It's a 10 out of 10. It's 10 out of 10 entertainment, action, heart, all of it. And that's why it's my number one. So I guess since this video has been going on long, I will say that I will be doing more. If you like this, and if you want me to do shorter videos, because I will try to do shorter videos, just leave a comment down below telling me what you need me to change. I'll change anything that I need to do. I can't change the way the videos are because I do stuff with my phone. But I hope you enjoyed this. Comment, like, subscribe. Just be ready for more because I'm gonna try to do more now. So yeah. But peace out. And there is no fate but what we make.